Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome back to my channel. Last year when I was doing Vlogmas, I started what I would like to become a tradition of making an annual questions video. So I have a list of questions that I would like to come back to each year and just kind of update on where I am in my life. I thought it would be a nice check-in point, especially over the new year, to just see where I am and what I'm doing. And then hopefully I can look back on progress and changes and see, I don't know, I just think it'd be something nice to look back on. So this is only the second year, so it's not much of a tradition yet, but I feel like when you get to 3 years it's officially a tradition. So yeah, I have it broken down into a bunch of categories: the basics, some bookish questions, hobby check-in, and life stuff. I haven't looked at the questions before turning on the camera, so we'll see what comes from it. This is my 2024 annual questions. The first basics question is just my age. This isn't really a question that I need to think about, but it's more just kind of a marker for the sake of the video. So I am 28 years old, very aware of how close to 30 I am. Not that it makes a difference, I'm not scared of turning 30, it just feels big. I live in the same place I did last year. I'm still living in Oxfordshire. I'm not going to be any more specific on the internet because that feels like poor internet safety, but yes, still living in the same house. We rent a gorgeous little house that we absolutely love in North Oxfordshire. The next question is what I do for work. There is actually a bit of a development on this. Work has been a major trauma for me in the last couple of years. I was fired spontaneously from my job in 2022, got quite severe PTSD from it, and I've been working really hard with my therapist to process and overcome that trauma. But in this year I've been working remotely for my mum's company. I'm very fortunate that she owns her own business and I've grown up with that business, so I also know what she does quite well and I understand the business, so I'm quite a useful PA. Her words, not mine. So I'm doing some remote admin and personal assisting work with her, but I've also started my journey to become a dance teacher. I started shadowing a lot of classes. I spent a good 3 to 4 months shadowing classes. I started integrating a tiny bit of teaching and I even covered some classes before the end of the summer. And then in September I took on my own class. I teach an intermediate adult tap class and I've been doing it for 4 months, and I'm really enjoying it. I have a lovely group of ladies who I teach. They're a really good group, and they're a fantastic group for learning to teach and figuring out what works best for their skill level. And I'm hoping to take a level 3 teaching course next year, so a lot of progress there. I was annoyed with myself with how long I felt debilitated by the trauma of my previous employment, and I feel like I am finally starting to stand on my own feet again, and it's taken longer than anticipated, but I can't change the past and I can change the future, so working on changing the future. And then last but not least, in the basics section, we have autism. How's that doing? And actually we have some progress there as well. I've been on the waiting list for an autism assessment since 2020, I think. I finally have my assessment booked in. It's on January 23rd, and I am in equal measure excited to finally have the appointment, but also terrified because I'm very aware of, like, they're going to be looking for autism, so I have to really figure out and manage how much I'm masking, and I'm really nervous about it. But it's a long appointment. It's approximately a 5-hour appointment, but they also need to talk to someone who knew me as a child, so luckily my mum gets to come with me. But yeah, I actually have an assessment date. No official diagnosis yet, but I have an assessment date. And then on to the bookish questions, the first of which being, what's your unread physical TBR at? Well, according to my spreadsheet, my unread physical TBR is 468 books. But I feel like somewhere along the way that has got out of hand. Somewhere in the region of 460. I'm planning to do a shuffle around of all the books in my library, and I want to separate my read and my unread physical books. So I'm hoping to make a spreadsheet with a much more accurate count of this number over the new year, but currently it's in the realm of 460 books, and I'm very aware of how high that is. And my goal, one of my biggest goals for next year, is to reduce that number, because that is overwhelming, and there's no point in buying books if I'm never going to have the time to read all of them. She says now. Then we have, what's the most surprising book you read this year? I think this is the kind of question where you don't want to think too hard about it. I'm going to have a quick glance at the list of books I've read. I've read 69 books this year. The one that sprung to mind is The Kite Runner by Carla Tersini, because it kind of took me by the surprise in the fact that I had to rate it 5 stars. There was a feeling in my gut that when I finished it, I had to rate it 5 stars, because it was such an interesting story from a perspective that I've had the privilege of never having to consider before, and I like reading books that challenge that privilege, the kind of subconscious biases that come with that privilege. But similarly, I didn't particularly enjoy reading the story, especially because it was narrated by the author. I listened to the audiobook, and I don't think, even though there was an element of, well, at least the story's being told exactly how the author wants it to be told, you know, he's not he's not an actor. So I think part of the reason I didn't love the book so much is because it was told to me by someone who isn't a professional storyteller, which is essentially what an actor is. But I still rated it 5 stars, because even though I didn't love the experience of reading it, I knew it just deserved 5 stars. I enjoyed being challenged in reading it, but I didn't love the story. Like, when I think about it, it's an interesting take on a man escaping, or, you know, a refugee escaping to America, but there were still elements of privilege in his story. It was very interesting. But I don't know if the storytelling in the author being the audiobook narrator was the best storytelling. But it's a book that's made me think a lot. The fact I've just gone on this whole spiel, I think, clarifies it as the most surprising book I've read so far. Not so far, the most surprising book I've read this year. Then we have my most anticipated release for next year. The books that I'm most excited about tend to be the ones that I pre-order. So I have a list of books that I have pre-ordered for next year, and I think the most anticipated one for me is somewhere between Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, No One Asked You, Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, and Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. And when reading through that list, there was a twist in my gut that said Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I adored the reappearance of Rachel Price, and it wasn't my most surprising read, but it took me by surprise how much I enjoyed the reappearance of Rachel Price. I'm often taken by surprise with the books I end up buying and the books I end up enjoying. So at the moment, I think I'm most excited about Holly Jackson's new release, but also a new Ali Hazelwood, a new Emily Henry, the next book in the Fourth Wing series. They're all very exciting. I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, I've hit my reading goal in 2024. I think I've read everything. Well, I've read pretty much everything I want to read in 2024. I just want to start on my 2025 reading now. And that's a really nice position to be in, to be so excited about starting a brand new goal next year. And then last in the bookish section, we have you bought more than you read this year? Yes, officially. At this point, I have acquired, because not every book that has come into my house has been purchased by me. Not all of them have been purchased. Some of them have been acquired as gifts or in giveaways or whatever. But at the moment, I've acquired 120, maybe slightly more than 120 new books, and I've read 69. So I've definitely read more, read less. I don't know the exact numbers, but yes, I have bought more than I read this year, which is disappointing and not my intention. And hopefully 2025 will be the year that I get a handle on that. Then we get into the hobby section. This is mostly just, are you still doing the things that you know you enjoy doing? So the first of those being still dancing. Obviously I'm still dancing because I am now turning that into an aspect of my career. I think this time last year I was only taking ballet classes and I was looking to get back into tap, but it wasn't really a financial option. Now, if we're including the classes I teach an intermediate tap class. I assist with a special educational needs dance class, which isn't as structured dancing, but definitely still counts as exercise and is genuinely the most rewarding thing I do every week. I love helping with that class. And then I have now changed to a different ballet class, which is slightly more advanced, and I'm doing 2.25 hours of ballet in one go. We have an 1.5 hour ballet class and then a 45-minute point class. I love it. I genuinely love it. I don't know if I feel like I've made any particular progress this year because there's some health stuff that is definitely getting in the way. But yeah, still dancing, still loving it, still looking for every opportunity to dance as much as I can. Then the next hobby check-in is still crafting. And yeah, I genuinely do think I'm doing quite well in making time for my crafting hobbies. Even though I can't get a handle on buying less books than I'm reading, I've actually been really strict in not buying any new craft materials because I have so many craft materials and I just don't need any more. Whenever I come up with a craft idea, I almost always have all of the resources for it. And like even my husband likes getting involved in the craft activities every now and then. And we had an idea for making a hoodie. Not making a hoodie, making a hoodie design. We bought the hoodie from Primark and then we used the Cricut to make the design, cut out the vinyl and then heat press it on. And we had almost all of the vinyl we needed to make that hoodie without having to go to Hobbycraft. And I think that says everything about my crafting collection. Yeah, I've got too much stuff and I have slowly but surely been making my way through it. And yeah, I really love having craft time to catch up on YouTube, to listen to audiobooks. I love crafts, I love being creative, and I love using it as an excuse to get offline as well. So many of my hobbies and so much of my day-to-day is staring at a screen, and I love using it as an excuse to get off the screen. Then we have still writing. I haven't been writing as much this year. I didn't win NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, which is where in the month of November a bunch of people come together online and try to write 50,000 words in a month. But I didn't win, but also I did still write 30,000 words of an original novel. I have now since decided that actually I don't think the novel is that good of an idea. It could be a novella actually. There might still be, I still love the idea and I love the characters, but I just don't think there was enough substance in it to make it a full-blown novel. But I did write 30,000 words, and next year, I say this every year, but I really think next year might be the year. Fingers crossed. I still love creative writing, it's just hard to make time for it as an adult. And then the last hobby is still pretending you can play the piano, and honestly, I haven't touched my piano for a really long time, and one of my New Year's resolutions / goals for 2024 was to use my musical instruments or get rid of them, because I have a guitar, I have a ukulele, I have a collection of I have a flute, I think, somewhere, and I haven't touched any of those, so I think I will be selling those in the new year. But the piano is something I just can't quite bring myself to get rid of, because I would love to have that as a hobby that I can turn to. So I'm like, okay, I want to buy a couple of you know, music books of music that I'm interested in that isn't necessarily like when you're at school and you're learning the piano, you learn grade music, you take exams, you learn classical piano music. But I am a grown adult who is not being taught formally and is not going to be taking any exams or playing piano professionally. So if I want to play film score music and some of my favourite classical musicians' music and, you know, video game music, I'm allowed to do that. So I think what I need to do is find some scores that I really know and like and start to teach myself those, and then hopefully the skill will come with it. I think the fact that I've just made that whole ramble justifies me keeping the piano. Then we have the life section. In the life section we have the biggest achievement of 2024, And again, I'm going with my gut for this one because I haven't prepared or thought about these questions in advance at all. And the first thing that came to mind was teaching a class by myself. I was absolutely terrified those first few weeks, standing up in front of a group of people and having all of them look at you, especially when you're teaching something exercise based and you're insecure about your body, is really challenging. It's still the bit that scares me the most. I'm not worried about my tap ability, I'm not worried about the content I'm teaching. The worst bit for me is having people look at me. But that is I don't want to say that's so easy to overcome, but it's easy to ignore for an hour. Especially when you have a good group of people that make you feel comfortable and they leave the class saying, oh, I feel so much better now, especially with how late at night that class is. The people in my class are still enjoying themselves regardless. So overcoming that barrier and actually teaching a group of other adults is definitely my biggest achievement of this year. My best memory with Lucas is a challenging one because we've done a lot of really nice things this year. I mean, we had a lovely little trip away for our anniversary. We went down to Lyme Regis in Dorset, which is where we went for a little mini moon straight after our wedding, and it was really nice to have that dedicated time together and go exploring the south coast. We went for walks, we went to lots of bookshops, we played video games, we got fish and chips for dinner. It was lovely. But also we went to visit my friend who lives in the north of Wales, and we had a really lovely weekend. It was almost an element of the friend that I went to see I've known since I was 6 years old, so obviously I know her parents quite well. So being able to take my husband into my childhood friend's parents' house and watching him be so comfortable with them, and for them to say like, oh, he's such an, and for them to have known me since I was so young and to now know me as a married woman, and for them to say like, oh, he's such a nice boy. I was really proud of him and us in that moment. I'm very, very lucky to have a husband like Lucas. I feel very fortunate to have met him so young and for him to be the only person I've ever been in a relationship with. I have 100% success rate in my relationships, and some may see that as inexperience, but I feel very lucky to have met the person that I fully intend to spend the rest of my life with so early in my life. And yeah, he makes me feel lucky. Without getting too soppy, I have a lot of love for my husband. And yeah, he's my best friend and I feel very lucky to have him. That was a bit much, let's move on. The biggest challenge of the year, without a doubt, it's been my mental health. Like I said, I faced a lot of trauma when I lost my job, but that was 2 years ago now. And not only do I still have some of the lingering elements of that trauma, but I've also got the other elements of my mental health to deal with, and my anxiety has been so up and down this year. But yeah, the days where I can't get out of bed or I can't get off the sofa, the days where I feel frustrated with my lack of progress and not being financially independent. I've had the taste of being financially independent and that was ripped away from me, and I think my biggest goal since then has been to get back to that. And it's been really hard, but I have made progress and I do feel like I am overcoming something. It's definitely been the biggest challenge of the year, but arguably also the biggest progress I've made. Then from a slightly heavier answer to a very trivial question, do you have hair plans? Change length, colour, shave, donate, etc. The only thing is I got a fringe recently. It's not the cleanest right now, so it's not looking its best, but yeah, I now have a little fringe. I hate the word bangs. I just hate it. So I will always call it a fringe. I think it's a very cute word. But no, I'm still loving being ginger, although I really need to do my roots. And I don't think I plan on changing that. I feel like I was meant to be ginger, even though it's not natural. It just suits me and I love it. And then the last question in this last category is my most important goal for next year. And I don't know if I've thought of any of them as being more important than anything else. I've redesigned how I've made my goals for next year. I've got a whole video on my goals for next year if you'd like to watch that. I will link it in the corner. Potentially what I would deem my most important one is making my 2025 photo album, because memories are so important to me, and I'm really excited to make my 2024 photo album, because I've been making a little digital collection of my year, and I currently have 406 items in that folder, and that's before I had the December pictures. Making those memories and not just having them in a pile waiting to be scrapbooked, to have them actually as a photo book, I think is quite important to me. And that's the last one. Part of me thought maybe I could add some questions this year, but I don't think there's anything else I really want to add. I think all the crucial things are there. We've covered all the major topics, and I've been yapping for quite a while. So let's call it there. I hope you had a lovely Christmas. A Happy New Year, depending on when you're watching this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're reading a great book, and I'll see you next time for maybe not a book adjacent video, but there will definitely be books in it somewhere. Bye.